because I feel like I was in a rush to try and be successful. I've
Right.
always, and and at the time I was 23, 24, 25, and as I was, because I did my 4 years, and at the time you feel like you're old.
Yeah.
Like even when I was 27, I thought, like, because we have these, like, we put these narratives in our head and these milestones that we need to be this by 30, or that's what I did anyway.
Sure.
And looking back now, I'm 37. I actually don't feel 37. I feel the best I probably felt. I wish I could have gone back to myself, to the 27-year-old, and just said, just calm down.
Cast, thank you so much for being here. You're helping us continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious life ever, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us here. So thank you, and thank you. Embracing adversity and growth is like a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. It may be a challenging process, but the result is a truly beautiful and transformative thing. In our interview with Marty Cornish, we explore this idea and how it relates to living audaciously. Marty is a motivational speaker and a life coach with over a decade of experience of helping individuals overcome obstacles and reach their full potential. His inspiring journey from adversity to success has touched the lives of many. In this episode, Marty shares his personal story of facing and overcoming adversity, highlighting the importance of resilience and growth in living audaciously. So now that we've got the table set, let's turn to our chat with Marty. Hey, Marty, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, my friend.
Good morning, and well, good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this is great. We spend much time on this podcast encouraging individuals to live their best audacious life. And, there's all sorts of pathways and different things people can do to get there. And so the opportunity to engage in these conversations, I get a charge out of them, and I enjoy them immensely. One of the things that we talk about, encourage as individuals to how they deal or how they respond to adversity. We know it's going to happen on our pathway. It's a natural, and it's really our job to withstand, get past, get through whatever that is. We have to, because on the great on the other side is where individual greatness lies. And so maybe as a starting point, Marty, I can get you to fill our audience in a little bit about what you do and what's got you up into this point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having me. So, I'm the founder of Phoenix Workwear, and but I've been in business for the last 10 years, and basically I grew my last company from 0 to 70,000 customers in 31 countries. So, we're very ambitious, very big scale, but
Hmm.
lots of adversity in that process, which taught me a lot for my current venture, which is Phoenix. And our mission at Phoenix is we're all about empowering Australians to overcome what holds them back,
Okay.
and so they can thrive. And a big part of that is breaking the stigma around mental well-being and mental health, which is a big
Mm.
problem in Australia.
Right, right. When you say a big problem, can you sort of elaborate further on how large of an issue it is?
Yeah, for sure. Because obviously, Australia, we're quite a small country compared to, say, the US in terms of population,
Sure.
but nearly 4 million Australians are nearly affected every year. We've got just over 8 people taking their own life every day. But the root cause, or one of the main causes, is that a lot of people aren't speaking up that are suffering. Around
Hmm.
60% of those 4 million people, won't seek help because there's this massive stigma around mental well-being and mental health.
Right.
So a big part of what we're trying to do, and it really ties back into the resilience side of things with my background, from being in the military, from building companies, running marathons, from my childhood. I had to heal myself and overcome a lot myself.
Hmm.
And now my personal mission, what really fulfills my purpose, is trying to help the next person overcome what's holding them back. Because I've done it, and obviously I've still got a long way to go in certain things.
Right.
We're always growing, but compared to who I was at 18, compared to who I am at 37, is a big difference.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I wonder perhaps if you can talk a little about the adversity that you faced at an early age and what you had to do to get past it.
Yeah, sure. So, like for me, I like my mother's my best friend, so we're very close. So, but she, had me at 16, so
Hmm.
that was kind of my father didn't really stick around, growing up. So, and then my stepfather, there was a lot of drugs in their house, a lot of heavy drugs, and I went to 14 different schools, so I moved around a lot
Wow.
from a yeah. So it was very
A
kind of
lot. Yeah.
yeah, but I never really, thought, oh wow, my life sucks kind of thing like that.
Right. It was just the
And
way it
then
is for you.
yeah, you're just kind of going through it, right?
Sure.
And the only thing is for me is when I would go to stay at my friend's place at school, you'd go in there and in their cupboard they would have all these lollies, candy, chips, and then I'd be like winning the lottery, and they're like, to them it
Right.
was just normal. But so then I went to live with my grandparents because I was kind of heading down the wrong path, hanging around
Yep.
some of the wrong people, and then kind of got back on track that way. And but still like struggled at school. I was good at sport, but not really much else, and
Mm.
entrepreneurial stuff. I was always the kid selling the lemonade stand,
Gotcha.
selling
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, no, and it's nice to hear that despite the challenge that you faced, you still were able to be, who you were to a certain degree, it sounds like.
yeah. I don't know what it was, but I just had this entrepreneurial flair, and it's just carried with me my whole life, and it's kind of been my saving grace, really, because.
Mm.
But I think for me, it was I didn't like my environment growing up, like in terms of that lack, in terms of not being able to go to the coven and get a nice bag of chips sometimes
Right.
than my friends could. And I feel like that's driven my ambition a lot in life with this trying to break the cycle in my family.
Right, right. When do you or do you recall when you recognize um the value or the benefit of having an entrepreneurial spirit?
Because when I was 18 and I had the entrepreneurial spirit, there was a lot of self doubt.
Okay.
Um, I knew what I wanted in terms of what I thought I wanted in terms of lifestyle at that point, but there was still a lot of uncertainty of what vehicle was going to take me there.
Hmm.
Time. So it's not until I believe I developed a self confidence because I used to think that you needed to have a degree to be successful.
Right.
You needed to be a doctor, you needed to be a dentist. That was how you develop wealth.
Well, that's what society told us, right?
Yeah. Like I remember driving around this really affluent neighborhood on the Gold Coast where I used to live, and there's all these big mansions, kind of like maybe like a Beverly Hills or one of the affluent suburbs. And I was just thinking, oh, everyone, and I was just saying, oh, this person must be a lawyer, this one must be a property developer. But
Mm.
now my mindset is completely different. It's like a lot of with business, like if you speak to a financial advisor, one of the first things they'll say to you is, you need to, if you want to get really wealthy, you got to start a business. And then
Gotcha. And then just kind of grew from there.
yeah, and then now it's for me it's more about purpose now as well in terms of what I do with business. But that's what really kind of fills me up the most is
Hmm.
having that purpose in terms of it comes back to that saying, it's a bit cliche, but providing value, like how much value are you actually bringing to the marketplace?
And that's a great question, right? Like, I mean, it really forces you to analyze your space and where you fit into the big picture. And and how you're making it better. Like that's, I think, that's a fantastic question.
Yeah. Yeah, you think so? Yeah. Like I've been, and how big is the problem that I'm helping solve, you know? Um, and I feel like that way it really kind of forces us to, because I've been thinking about it last night just with my own business is,
Hmm.
you know, it's not really about us. You know, if we're not hitting our goals or something like that, it's like, well, is the problem that I'm solving for the other person, is it urgent enough for them?
Right. That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah. Because then that really tells you how significant it truly is. And maybe in your
Yeah,
mind, it's a big deal, but in the end, it may not be. Like it's someone else is like, nah, it's not a problem for me. I can work through it.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm,
And
mm,
that we're going to talk a bit about business, but then that question really is my business really solving a big enough problem, and is it an
mhm.
important enough problem for?
Yep.
But yeah,
And I think it's a really good way of keeping yourself honest too, right? Like in terms of your business and whether or not it's hitting the marks and being as responsive or responsible as you want it to be, right? So no, I think it's a fair question, fantastic question. Actually, I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Tell me how the your military background, what that looks like, and maybe describe how that assists you today.
yeah. So I joined them. I tried to get into the military when I was 17
Hmm.
and was knocked back. They said, you know, go get more life experience. So then I went down the corporate route from 17 to 23 in Sydney, and ended up, I guess, really wanting that brotherhood, that sense of, you know, someone's got my back. And my
Right.
grandfather served for 14 years. They're the ones that took me in from my childhood. So he played a significant role in my life. So I ended up getting in at 23, and you know, it really got me into fitness, obviously. I
Hmm.
was already quite fit, but it really brought in a lot of discipline in my life when I needed it,
Yep.
and a lot of structure. But I still built a business on the side while I was in the army. You know, I launched a clothing brand. So once again, I always had that entrepreneurial thing going on.
Right.
I feel that, you know, it's definitely even helped me in business. Like I'm using like a lot of military kind of planning, you know, just basic stuff today in
Okay.
business. One thing I've noticed in the last year is just how much military planning logistics can actually be applied to business. I
Hmm.
kind of wish I was more open minded to that at the time of going through the army.
Right. 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 And why do you think you weren't? What was going on there for you?
I feel like that it was for me, it was hard because I was very entrepreneurial in terms
Hmm.
of I had a passion, like I knew I wanted to be in business. Um, so for example, like as soon as I'd finish work, say at 4 o'clock, then I'd be building websites
Hmm.
and I kind of look back and I just wish that maybe when I was younger, because I feel like I was in a rush to try and be successful. I've
Right.
always and you know, and at the time I was 23, 24, 25, and as I was, because I did my 4 years, and you know, at the time you feel like you're old.
Yeah.
Like even when I was 27, I thought, oh, like, because we have these, like, we put these narratives in our head and these milestones that we need to be this by 30, or that's what I did anyway.
Sure.
And looking back now, I'm 37. I actually don't feel 37. I feel the best I've probably felt. I wish I could have gone back to myself, to the 27-year-old, and just said, just calm down.
It's easy to get worked up, isn't it?
Yeah. It was because it was this, yeah, you know, Instagram was out and you've seen these people with these, I'm successful and I started off my $10,000 credit card and now we've got this warehouse. So it was all ego though, right? It's all
Right.
ego for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing with those stories is one thing you never get an opportunity to see or to that's shared is the failures, right? We just see the successes and when things are great, but no one's sharing the mishaps and the mistakes and the challenges, right? So that I think that skews everyone else's vision because they think, oh, this person's just a natural success. Meanwhile, they fail umpteen times, right? And they keep failing.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I was listening to something Tom Brady. Um, don't know how everyone feels about Tom Brady. We have some people love him, but um, I was listening to something he was saying yesterday, and it was a really good point, and it made me really see the human side.
Hmm.
You know, the father in him. There's someone that's still got to discipline his kids. Like we forget about that sometimes. You know, the daily stresses that he would still have. But he said, you know, it's not about the wins for him. It was the losses that actually taught him and drove him the most. You
Sure.
know, that's what made Tom Brady was those losses, like
Hmm.
being the 199 draft pick. Like it was the adversity that really it's who made him what he was saying. It's not the highlight. It's not the rings.
Sure.
I think for him, like maybe when he was going through the divorce, and it's like that chip on his shoulder is everyone thinks I'm gonna. This is the moment everyone thinks I'm gonna break, and I'm gonna F and show them that this is what I'm about.
Right.
I
Right.
think he thrives off that adversity. Do you know what I mean? It drives him. So
And
I
that's
think
where,
it's the word.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I think that's where the biggest lessons come from for sure. I know that, so I get it.
Yeah, I think it's the way we view adversity, and like when I read Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacles to Way. I'm not sure if you've
Yeah, familiar with
read it.
it.
Yeah. Really, really good book, and it really changes the way we look at adversity, and it
Hmm.
really encourages us to lean into it.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think it's if you're present with it and you're leaning into it, like you said, you have an opportunity to see the good things that it can potentially provide you. And um, I recognize, look, I'm the first to tell you, I know how hard things are to look on the bright side in difficult periods, right? But there, if you're looking and you're paying attention, there is always something there that you just have to be able to see and recognize.
Yeah, and that's it. Like it's let's be clear, it's not always like it sucks sometimes to go through it. It's not easy. It forces you to really dig deep. But I know in my life, not all the time I've struggled, and you know, it's not always easy and
Hmm.
sunshine and rainbows. But
Sure.
sometimes at my biggest adversity when I was going really through it in business and everything was going wrong. And I'm talking, there's a lot of money on the line here, you know, millions of dollars, and it was quite serious stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but it forced me, but I really, that's what got me into Stoicism. And I would wake up every morning and I would say to myself, and I'd be going on this beautiful walk. It'd be like 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
sunrise, kangaroos where I lived at the time. And I'd ask myself, I'd be like, what type of man would I want to be today if this was the last day if this was my last day today?
Mm,
And it really forced me to be, you know, say something, not go in, have a nice breakfast with my mum
mm,
and cherish that.
right.
And then I would go, what is the next 5 things I can do today to turn this around?
Yes.
And I would just take action like a relentless madman. But the point I'm making is it forced me to get up early. I went to a whole new level through that
Right.
experience.
Right.
It
Right.
brought
Wow.
out something in me, and it really, because I thought my problem I thought it was the worst thing in the world. But then by bringing in the Stoicism philosophy, going, okay, one day I'm going to die. You know, that's a guarantee, unfortunately.
Mm,
Hopefully we have it. We'll go to heaven and afterlife, but we'll leave that to the side. But so once we accept that, we're like, well, shit, that's going to happen.
yes.
And then it's like, okay, so it kind of brings a bit of less sting to the problem a little bit, hopefully,
Right.
whatever
Right.
you're facing. And then if we go, okay, well, what can I control? What's in my control? And what are the next best 3, 5 steps that I can take that I think right now is the best to make this better or turn it around? That's in my control.
Right. Right. And those three little steps, I mean, they're important because, that can help. build that momentum. So maybe you do something that's relatively not difficult, easy, if you will, and then you achieve that, and then you go on to the next one and the next one. By it's you've now built up the resilience by continuing to lean into things, right? And so when you face that big challenge, you're like, bring it on, I'm ready to go, right?
Yeah. And that's it. And then most of the time you'll overcome it. Like there's a very good chance. Um, and even if you don't, and I'm mainly talking about business problems. I'm not talking about health and most of that stuff. But
Sure.
who we become in that process, that's how we build the calisters and get tougher. That's what builds that resilience. You look at you look at a pilot, for example, a
Hmm.
senior pilot. He's gone through turbulence so many times. It's nothing
Right.
to him.
Right.
But to a new flyer, to people in the back, they're freaking out over turbulence. And that's why you look at, I say, a really good business owner or a CEO is they've gone through the turbulence, they've gone through the adversity.
Right.
That's what they're paid. Um, that's why they're paid so well. It's to handle crisis. It's not just
Right.
for the sunshine.
Got you. Yep. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. I'd love to touch on your work as an an ultra marathon runner. Um, I would imagine there's all sorts of integral life lessons that come out of running, and then of course you did qualify for the Boston Marathon. That's another feather in your cap, so to speak.
Yeah, well, so I got into running after the military. Like I did a little bit of running in the army, but I was going through, funny enough, a lot of adversity in business at the time,
Hmm.
and I was in a bit of a low point in my personal life as well in terms of drinking to manage the stress of the business, and so it was just this counter, and I really needed something to get the best version out of me.
Right.
And then I was actually coming over to LA. One of my best friends is American, so I was coming over to LA, and I'm like, I'm gonna run a marathon for my birthday. That's what I for
Right.
my 30th birthday.
Hmm.
And then and the stars aligned, and I looked up marathons to run in LA, and then there was one coming up. Lo and behold,
Hmm.
and then I converted miles to kilometers, and I realized that it's 42 kilometers. And I thought, well, hang on, no, I'm not going to run a marathon. I need to actually train. I can't. I thought it was maybe 15 kilometers. This is how naive I was, right? So
That's
then
brilliant.
I went back to the drawing board and trained for a half marathon, and just kind of fell in love with the challenge of bringing out that best in me. I
Yep.
had routine again to train. I had a goal, a mission, and I fell in
Starting to
love
sound
with.
familiar, isn't it? Right? Have that goal and
Yeah,
mission.
yeah, yeah. Because I feel like for me, when I don't have a goal, I don't have my purpose outside of business, it leads to temptation. It's like, oh, I can have a couple red wines on a Friday night.
Sure.
But I'm not saying about balance, each to their own. I'm not telling you how people are to live their life, but this is what I did. But
Yeah.
then for me, if I've got to run 35 kilometers on a Sunday, I don't really want to have those couple red wines for me personally because I'm going to be a bit dehydrated.
Sure.
So it really, but man, there's so many lessons in running to
Hmm.
like they say in running the real marathon doesn't start until the 30K mark, 30
Oh wow.
kilometers. So I think that's around the maybe 18 mile. I'm not too sure, but it's because by then a lot of your glycogen, a lot of your energy is depleted,
Right. Right.
and it comes down to your heart. What are you really made of? How bad do you really want it? And I got off
Hmm.
on that. I love that side of that running.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a really fantastic question to ask yourself. Um, are there any sort of key lessons that come out of running that you can use or you do use?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the time with running, when you're training for a marathon or a marathon build, there's a lot of runs in there that you're not going to feel great. You're not going to feel like it.
Hmm.
Like we've got to get out of our head that we're like, that we're always going to feel like doing it. Um,
Right.
the just how powerful the mind really is. because
Right.
in running I found like when you're doing these training sessions, like because I was running with Gold Coast Run Co, like we do a lot of speed sessions where you're really taking your heart rate up into the red zone. So it's
Hmm.
like it's really working. Um, and it's this constant battle with your mind where it's like you might have, say, a kilometer to go and your mind's telling you to back off
Yes.
because
Yeah.
your blood is pumping, but it's using the mind. But because you're competing, it's this constant battle between your mind and your body.
Yes.
And I've had countless stories of just with the mind. It's this consistent battle with the mind, and I feel like once you learn to overcome that, the limits. It's just made me realize how many limits our mind actually puts on us that aren't really.
Hours. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. No, I can certainly see that. And it's interesting. Like, I think even as you're talking about it, you're labeling it, you're identifying it. That's important. That's important exercise to go through. That way, when we see it, we can recognize it, right? And we go, okay, yeah, I know what this is. And, in fact, not only do I know what this is, I know what I did to get through it. So that's all I got to do is do this, and I'm good.
yeah. Like for example, I ran the LA Marathon. It took me 4 hours
Okay.
to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I've got to run a marathon in 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So I never thought I'd be able to run. Like when I first ran that first marathon at 4 hours, I never thought I'd actually be able to be good enough to run the Boston to qualify at sub three.
Right.
And then
Interesting.
like it was this odd like when somebody showed me the pace that you've got to run a full marathon at to
Hmm.
qualify for Boston, I'm like, oh my God, this is wow, man. How do they do it? You know?
I
And
love
that's
it.
what I mean. And it's like this constant this thing in our mind that we that we these limiting beliefs and and I think it applies so much to our business as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I got it. I got it. Well, I know some really, really, really powerful lessons that can help really shape us, really, if we're paying attention to the lessons.
Yeah.
Man.
When we challenge ourselves, I feel
Yeah.
like when we get uncomfortable.
Right. Hmm. No, insightful stuff, am I right?
Yeah. And but to go back to your point with grit, I like it comes back to also it's like the habits. Am I showing up as the best version of myself?
Mm,
Like am I drinking all weekend? Because I'm not going to have grit on Monday when when I'm really hungover and I've had too much fun on the weekend. I'm not saying for
yeah,
people not to go have fun if that's your thing. I've
sure.
done that plenty of time. But grit is, am I in the gym? How am I eating habits? Like I
Yep.
love a bit of junk. Like I'm not even saying that. But how is my am I taking care of myself mentally? Am I reading? Am I getting into the best possible shape, fueling me,
Right.
ready to be the vehicle that can take on anything?
Gotcha. That sounds so poetic. It really does. Love it. I love it.
You got to
It-
bear.
it-
It's 5 a.m. in Australia right now when I do this, so like
okay.
it's a bit. But I'm getting a bit warmed up now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No problem. Glad. Glad. That's a good point. I like that. So I know we talked off the top of the mental health component. Can we sort of get just back to that and around um and I know you said it's certainly a big problem. 4 million people is a lot of people, right? Regardless of the size of your country, it's a lot of people, and so um, I don't know. What are if you're sure think about a couple of strategies that people who are going through mental health challenges can employ? What would you say they are?
Yeah. So, what would my strategies be to overcome it? Some.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll share what's worked for me, okay?
Okay.
And I don't tell anyone how to live their life because, you know, I used to drink and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
I'm not a complete sober as well. I'm not saying I'm never going to drink again. But to answer your question, for me, it's removing alcohol completely. I'm
Right.
not saying people can have one or two. I was always in the army. It was always would drink quite a lot. When we drank a
Sure.
lot. So for me, it's removing alcohol
Mhm.
because that just sets up my habits with clean eating or eat better. I don't always eat clean. I'm not gonna. So and then it's getting into the gym pretty much or doing some kind of movement, whether that's a
Yeah.
45-minute walks, getting
Hmm.
the body moving.
Mm.
And then I jump into the sauna after my workout.
Sounds great.
So I've skipped a step, but it also starts in the morning routine as well. Like before
Yes.
all of that, I do a cold shower every morning, and then just a very simple. I used to meditate a lot. I don't do it a great deal now, but
Yeah.
even just 1 minute of gratitude,
It's a big deal.
yeah. Just even if it's like for me, it's always something simple with my family. It's
Mm.
nothing goal orientated, just
Right.
something simple with man, you've got another day here on this
Yes.
planet. You've got
That's
your
right.
health. A lot of people, and you got to think like at that moment, how many people didn't wake up today?
It's true.
How many people don't have their health right now that would
Yeah.
do anything to be in your position?
That's right. That's right. That's right. No, you're right. I think that's
Mm,
again. I talked earlier about perspective. That's great perspective to be able to look at and question something from an objective standpoint, which is great. Um, I got to tell you, Mark, I really do appreciate this chat today in terms of the insight that you offer. I think when you sort of look at so for example, I oftentimes talk on this podcast about the collection of our experiences, right? And so in the moment, we're just doing things, but it's not till we get to the end we look back and go, oh, and we see all the dots connected, right? And so I think that's really important. Why individuals should look to try things, right? Whether or not you've ever done it before, it doesn't matter. Try it, and if it doesn't work out, then you know something that you don't like. But if it does work out, hey, you just won, right?
exactly. And I feel like by trying, at least you're not going to die wondering. Do you know what I mean? At
Mm,
least I feel like for me, that's where, for me and some of my goals and what I've done, and sometimes I've failed. You know what I mean? I haven't always
sure.
won. I've won, and I've done a lot of cool things. I've also lost a few times as well.
Mm,
But
yeah,
when I with those losses, there was sometimes I really believed in what I was doing, and I didn't want to. I would rather back myself. And when you're looking back in your life, do you want to go back and go, "Oh, I wish I would have done that. That would have
right.
been cool." Or do you want to go, "You know what? I've got some scars on my face. You know what?
Yeah,
I've been in a couple, but you know what? I never quit and I never gave up and I tried. I've won and I've lost."
I love it. I love it. And that's and the part I also like the self talk, right? So when you talk that way to yourself, it's so powerful. So I mean that's great too. This is great too, Marty. This has been super awesome. I'm glad that you're here on this podcast. I really appreciate the insights that you've shared. If listeners wanted to connect with you, learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Come follow me on Instagram. That's probably
Okay,
the best. Yeah, I can. We've got a lot of things happening at the moment in terms of what I'm
good for you.
working on, but that's way to get in with me on a more personal, I guess, to comment, see what I'm up to, and I can follow you back. And
Sure.
yeah,
Amazing, amazing. Well, look, congratulations on all the success, man. But more so, I need to congratulate you on what you're doing to share with others, right? Which is also equally as important, if not more, because you're now helping others avoid challenges and obstacles that you may have faced. That's really great stuff. Yeah, no, thank you for doing this. Is awesome, man.
no, thank you, man. I really enjoy doing, having these conversations.
Yeah,
I find it, yeah, it's my creative side. I know I really enjoy doing and talking. I really enjoy talking about adversity and these kind of things for some reason. I don't know
yeah.
what it is.
Well, I mean, it's definitely relatable. Everyone knows what it is, right? Back we are here on the podcast, and much appreciation and thanks goes out to Marty for being here. Really, I think your story is an awesome one, and Marty's conversation reminds us that adversity is not the end of the road, but a stepping stone to growth and transformation. By embracing challenges as difficult as they may be and learning from them, we can unlock our true potential and live our most audacious lives. Listeners are encouraged to connect with Marty directly for personalized coaching and motivational speaking services. And of course, the contact details can be found in the show notes below. Now, as a special offer, Marty is currently offering a special coaching package for podcast listeners, really designed to help individuals kickstart their journey towards audacious living. And again, the show notes below will give you a connection to his website where you can follow up on that. Thank you for tuning in to the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider following, subscribing, and sharing if you haven't already done so, because that's how we grow this podcast and reach even more listeners who are very interested in living their best audacious lives. Remember, the journey to audacious living begins with a single step, and you've got to be ready to take yours. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.